Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are opening just a fascinating stack of source material. Our mission is, well, it's huge. We're challenging the line drawn between the natural and the supernatural.
It's a boundary that history has always been redrawing, you know?
Right?
I mean, think about it. Before someone like Louis Pasteur, disease was often seen as what? Divine punishment, a supernatural affliction. Now we just call it germ theory. It's a natural law.
Of course.
So our deep dive today is really centered on this idea that phenomena we label as miracles aren't. They're not breaches of reality. They're simply expressions of natural laws we don't yet understand.
So the big question is, are these events actually breaches in the fabric of reality?
Hmm.
Or are they deep, maybe surprising, but still lawful interactions with reality?
Hmm.
Because we're living in this scientific moment where our understanding is just exploding outwards into cosmology and at the same time inwards into the really strange responsive rules of the quantum realm.
And consciousness is the variable sitting right in the middle of all that. It's the lens, it's how both of those extremes are observed and, well, how they're known.
Yeah.
And this framework, it really forces us to consider the universe not as some, static clockwork machine, but as a responsive relational system. We are profoundly woven into its operations, not just separate observers peering in.
That brings us to a foundational idea for this entire discussion. It's a reflection that kind of set the stage for this thinking decades ago from Albert Einstein. He said, "The world as we have created it is a process of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking."
That's the perfect starting point.
So let's start right there. How does this participatory view fundamentally change what we even call a miracle?
Well, traditionally, a miracle requires some kind of external higher power to suspend physical law. It's a violation by definition. But the alternative, this participatory view, it says, no violation required. These extraordinary events are simply interactions. They're occurring at the far edge of our current maps of reality, and they're demonstrating latent human capacities or environmental responsiveness we just haven't cataloged yet.
So we're expanding the definition of nature itself.
We have to.
If the universe operates according to underlying principles, then these extraordinary events, they're not exceptions. They're demonstrations of principles that are just really subtle or conditional or maybe dependent on the observer's state.
Exactly. And this isn't just, philosophical hair splitting. As modern science blurs the line between the physical and the experiential, I mean, you look at information theory, biophysics, attention studies, this concept of a universe that is fundamentally responsive becomes less of a spiritual notion and more of an empirical hypothesis.
I have to ask the crucial question right here, though. That sounds fantastic, but where is the line? I mean, if observation changes reality, how do we stop this from just becoming wishful thinking or worse, just pure pseudoscience?
That is the essential distinction.
And this is where the source material gets technical, right? Starting with physics.
It is. And physics really sets the stage for it. We know from quantum mechanics that observation is not a neutral act. At the smallest scales, just the act of measurement alters outcomes because information and interaction, they matter.
Right.
But here is the critical pivot, and the sources are really emphatic about this. This does not mean the human mind controls reality through willpower.
Okay, thank you. Because if we frame it as mind over matter, we run into immediate problems and all those pseudoscience pitfalls. So what is the precise mechanism then?
The mechanism is far more subtle than control. The interpretation is that consciousness may participate.
Yeah.
It might participate in how unstable systems resolve.
Unstable systems.
Think about any natural process that exists in flux. A coin spinning in the air, a chemical reaction that's hovering right at a tipping point. It exists between multiple possible outcomes.
Okay, so the system is already unstable. It's already prone to fluctuation. It's just sitting there, kind of waiting for a push.
And that's where awareness comes in. But it acts not as a muscular push, not as a force, but as a subtle influence that biases the resolution toward one possibility. And it does this without violating physical laws.
So it's not forcing it.
No, we prefer the term coherence. This isn't forcing a result. It's more like a subtle increase in the signal-to-noise ratio within an already fluctuating, unstable system.
So the quiet, non-directive involvement of awareness is acting as a constraint. It's reducing the noise of the system.
Precisely. By increasing coherence, awareness synchronizes with processes that are already underway. And this shifts the core inquiry from, can I will the system to change, to what role does my awareness play in how this reality is already unfolding? It's a fundamental move from mind over matter to I guess, mind inside matter.
I feel like I need a physics degree just to say that sentence. But this idea of alignment, this quiet presence that reduces noise, it feels instantly relatable to so many ancient practices. Meditation, deep attention, visualization.
Hmm.
These aren't about commanding the world, are they? They're about aligning yourself internally.
Absolutely. The sources connect this immediately to disciplines that emphasize inner quiet. And we see empirical reflections of this alignment in modern medicine, too. Through the study of expectation effects, like the placebo response, and in these emerging fields like psychoneuroimmunology.
Which studies the deep connection between our state of mind and our immune response.
Yes, the connection is undeniable.
So, if awareness plays this participatory role, even subtly, then that comes with an immense responsibility. We are no longer separate. We are intrinsically woven into the processes we observe.
And the practical responsibility starts with humility. We have to move from the conceptual plane of physics now to the biological one, because the body is the ultimate unstable system.
Okay, let's ground this. The sources use this great analogy, from clouds to cells.
Yes, the analogy works because both are complex living systems in constant resolution. A cloud is an unstable formation resolving through gradients of heat and pressure. The human body it's a living system in constant resolution, regulated moment to moment by immune intelligence, inflammation, hormonal signaling.
Both massive, fluctuating, information-rich systems.
Exactly.
Now, before we explore the link between awareness and the body's resolution mechanisms, we really have to apply a crucial, non-negotiable disclaimer here.
Yes.
For you listening, this discussion is philosophical and experiential. It is emphatically not medical advice, it is not a claim of a cure, and it should not be used as a substitute for qualified medical care.
Right.
We're exploring the science of perception, not prescribing treatment.
And with that established, we can talk about the scientific bridge. We know through extensive clinical evidence that mental and emotional states profoundly influence biological factors. Chronic stress, for example, is demonstrably linked to changes in telomere length, increased inflammation markers, impaired wound healing. The list goes on.
So we're not talking about magically vanishing a tumor here. We are talking about the measurable biological impact of chronic emotional states, whether they are states of noise or states of coherence.
That's the honest bridge. If awareness influences biology, it likely does so indirectly. It does it by supporting the conditions for the body's innate healing intelligence. Awareness, regulated through practices like, say, deep relaxation or meditation, it reduces stress reactivity, it regulates stress hormones like cortisol.
And creates an internal signaling environment that is just more conducive to repair.
Yes, it supports the system, it does not override or command it.
That leads directly into the ethical core of this entire view, doesn't it? The difference between cooperation and hubris. Why should understanding these subtle mechanisms not lead us to immediately try to, weaponize them?
Because the body is not a machine awaiting an override command. And nature is not a tool to be manipulated. Healing is fundamentally cooperation, not domination. If we were to uncover the precise mechanisms of biological coherence, wisdom would dictate restraint.
So the ultimate lesson isn't, look what I can make happen. It's more like, look how alive this system is and how carefully I must interact with it.
That's it.
The difference is supporting the body's innate intelligence, which is alignment, versus trying to impose willful results upon it, which is just hubris.
And this dichotomy between strained effort and non-directive alignment it's beautifully illustrated by these anecdotal accounts of cloud dissolution exercises detailed in the sources.
Let's start with the first one, the almost accidental observation, the one at Eric's apartment.
Yes. So the observer recounts constantly dismissing family stories about dissolving clouds. Just thought it was nonsense. Until one morning, they saw this isolated, small cumulus cloud. And they decided, almost playfully, to try the exercise.
Playfully, that's key.
Very key. They framed the cloud with their hands, but intentionally avoided any sense of force or strain. They were just holding the attention gently on the formation.
And Eric, the other person in the apartment, he silently noticed this.
He did. Eric walked over, and without a word, he just gently placed his hands around the observer's head, closed his eyes, and took a slow, deep breath.
So he wasn't trying to make the cloud dissolve either.
Not at all. He was simply creating a condition of quiet, non-strained presence. They were both participating in that subtle moment of quiet attention.
And what happened?
The cloud thinned, it frayed, and it just dispersed completely until only clear blue sky remained. And the crucial takeaway for the observer was the feeling afterward. It wasn't triumph, it wasn't power, it was genuine unsettling.
Surprise.
Surprise. Yeah. The sudden realization that their quiet attention had synchronized with a natural process already in motion, a system resolving itself.
That element of surprise is so important because it implies the observer wasn't anticipating success or straining for a specific result.
And that element of non-strained attention immediately collapsed when the observer tried to perform the exercise.
Right, this was years later.
Years later, yeah. They were teaching this concept to a group of students near Mount Hood, and they felt the pressure to demonstrate the concept, so they focused intently on a large, single cloud, trying to use the technique.
Nothing happened. The subtle state of coherence was replaced by ego and expectation.
It failed completely. The instructor felt frustration, embarrassment, the performance state, that state of wanting to win or prove something. It just acted like noise. It collapsed, the subtle mechanism.
So they changed the approach. How did the successful group exercise differ from that performance?
It was decentralized and depersonalized. Each student was instructed to silently select their own cloud, keep their intention private, free of expectation, ego, or any shared scrutiny.
So they weren't performing for the instructor or for each other.
No, they were just attending quietly to the process.
And the results were dramatic. Right.
Yeah. Within 15 minutes, the sky cleared completely over the mountain. The lesson was tangible. Performance collapses subtle states. Observation with expectation introduces interference. And doubt behaves like noise. The critical factor was the absence of strain, not the magnitude of any force applied.
That completely changes the definition of effort. It suggests that sometimes the hardest effort is the effort we apply to stop striving.
It's an internal mirror. This is why the guidelines for these attention exercises emphasize keeping the intention private, using quiet effort, and reflecting on the internal state, that feeling of coherence, rather than focusing on the outcome. Accounts from students who approached it playfully, who just let go of the need for proof, they reported consistent and quick resolution of smaller cloud formations.
When we synthesize everything from the quantum realm to the biological system, it transforms our definition of extraordinary events. They're no longer seen as supernatural interruptions, but as signals of participation, showing us just how deeply woven into reality we already are.
It brings us right back to that centuries-old reflection from St. Augustine. Miracles are not contrary to nature, but only contrary to what we know about nature. When we approach reality through the lens of coherence, our perspective changes entirely.
So the core takeaway is that the universe seems not to respond well to force.
That it often responds to coherence, and that coherence, it might support healing, it might lead to profound acceptance, or sometimes it requires deep restraint. Ultimately, the most profound act of participation in a relational universe is knowing when not to act at all.
That is a stunning thought to leave us with. So if our reality is constantly resolving through subtle interaction, as these sources suggest, what everyday actions are you performing with strain or ego that are unknowingly interfering with the natural coherence of your personal environment? I mean, how does embracing this absence of strain fundamentally change your definition of effort, whether that effort is applied to work, relationships, or even just breathing? Think about that internal noise.
Something to mull over until our next deep dive.